All right, here we go. Late night happy hour. DC in the sunshine, man. Willie is here. Koken is here. It's Cofield. I'm fired up, man. I'm fired up on a Friday night. It feels like the mask thing has everyone very energized. We'll kind of hash through the whole change in the masking policy. I want to remind everyone, and I'll put it up on the bottom of the video, that on Sunday, Cofield and Company will be out at the Cannery. The Cannery at, I think it's Victory's Bar and Grill, and we'll be hosting a Golden Knights viewing party for Game 1. So that starts, puck drops at noon, and we'll have a bunch of prizes starting at 11 o'clock. So we want people to come out to the, it's Cannery Northside. I think that's right. You know what? I got to check on that. Actually, I got sent all the requests, but I actually didn't. Oh crap!
Funny if you showed up at the wrong one.
That's a good point. You know, when I did the mentions on the air today, I was just like Cannery. I didn't mention new one or old one, but so that's coming up on Sunday. Real quick, I wanted to mention something. You know, Dave, you did radio for a long time. And you did thousands of interviews. And I'm sure you walked away from a lot of the interviews and you were like, God dang, that was a good interview. That was a good interview, right? I'm sure you have some memorable ones. And
some good ones, some not so good.
What for you, what makes an interview a good interview on radio?
If the guest is engaged.
Yeah.
I mean, there's times when, you know, the guest just doesn't want to be on. And he's doing it because he has to. Either to fulfill some kind of a sponsor requirement or just because he agreed to do it for some reason. And you can tell 2 minutes in, it's like, oh, okay, let's just get through this. And then there's others that are absolutely terrific where, and honestly, and this isn't a political thing, but I still believe that my favorite interview ever was the one we did with Barack Obama. This was funny. For those, and this, we sent out invitations to both candidates, Barack Obama and John McCain, in 2008, and really did not expect a response. But what the hell? Let's take a shot because they're both sports fans. McCain was always a big sports fan and visited Las Vegas on a regular basis, and we know Obama's a big sports fan, especially with his allegiance to Chicago teams. Oh, look at the puppy! So anyway, we didn't get a response from the McCain camp, but we did from the Obama camp. And they told us, okay, well, you can have him for, I think it was 7 minutes, was it? Yeah. And that if you go too long, the publicist or whoever's in charge is going to jump in, and that'll be the end of it. So we're talking sports. We weren't talking politics at all. We were talking sports. I think the only thing we touched on as far as politics goes was the possibility of legalized gambling, legalized sports gambling down the road.
How about that?
How'd that work out? But anyway, we were talking sports and he was having fun. So anyway, about 7 minutes in, here comes the PR person and says, well, you're going to wrap it up. And Obama says, I don't remember his exact words, but paraphrasing what he said, he says, no, it's okay. I want to stay on for a while. And we ended up doing like 15 minutes with him. And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was cool. That's a career highlight, right? And that's the whole goal of interviews, is that someone feels comfortable, and it actually, for them, it doesn't feel like an interview. Willie, I'm sure you feel the same way. How you judge interviews, and you're doing some long form interviews for your website. Like, what makes an interview a good interview?
Somebody who can, as Dave said, who's engaged, but also is engaging. They're not just feeding you the answers that they need to. You can tell that there's a lot of meaning to it. And I mean, I brought this up many times, Steve. This is probably one of your favorite ones of mine that I did so far for the website. But like being able to talk to Steven Sharippa and not just ask him questions and him give me the answers to get through the interview, and then to veer off and to talk about, in that regard, it was about old Las Vegas and tell stories and then relate to things. And that goes with anything, if you can reach beyond what your interview is about and sort of just veer off and be able to, have branches to every answer, and give anecdotes. I mean, I've always asked, do you have an anecdote? Do you have something? Or if you're interviewing somebody, for instance, I'm working on a piece for on Destiny Slocum, the rookie for the Las Vegas Aces, and I'm kind of asking Bill Laimbeer today and Liz Cambage and Asia Wilson different things about one thing that stood out to me on media day to expand on that interview so it's not just that person's engaged, but it's that person is engaging as well.
Right. All right. Well,
what's yours?
I can tell you
yours.
one of the favorite interviews I heard on Cofield and Company of all time, and that was when you and Adam had Ice Cube on.
oh my God, that was great. And that's a perfect example.
Yeah.
I know a little bit about Ice Cube, but I not like a ton. But we wound up doing like 35 minutes with Ice Cube, and then we closed, and he was like, "Wait, that's it." Like he wasn't like, "I have to get the F out of here. I hate these guys. This is stupid. I didn't want to do this."
Right.
Yeah, that was crazy. Well, because a lot of it was like a fact finding thing. Like I was not a hip hop guy growing up, so like I was actually trying to learn more and more about Ice Cube now, and especially, but then and especially now. So I don't. The reason I brought it up is that actually this stuff hits me that we do on radio. Sometimes it's like 3 and 4 hours after the show, or like the next day, or a couple of days later. And I was just thinking of some of the interviews we did the last couple of days, and I rarely do this. Like say, hey, I think we did a pretty good job. First of all, Ari booked some really good guests, but we had Doc Walker on, who used to play for the Redskins, has been around football team forever, and he won a Super Bowl with him, and he was like really good friends, really tight with John Thompson, and like it just felt like we were just sitting at a bar. It was a pretty long conversation. It was probably 22 minutes, and he just talked a lot about John Thompson. And at one point, I tried to switch it to, hardcore football. I'm like, hey, what's Washington going to be like this year? And he's like, basically, he was like, I don't care. He's like, it's too early. I'm not making predictions. And then I looked at JVT, and JVT was like, oh, okay. And we just kind of like veered it back to where Doc wanted to talk about, and he's more philosophical now at like 65 years old. So we made the transition, and it worked.
You know what? What's always good is when you get something you don't expect from a guest. And I'll give you one. Seat Williams and myself, this is when we were doing the Stardust show. And it was at the Stardust, and we had Michael Spinks with us in person. And I got an answer. I don't remember who asked him the question, whether it was Seat or myself. I think actually it was probably Seat. And he asked him what he was feeling like as he approached the ring to fight Mike Tyson. And he gave an answer that I never would have expected. He said, I was terrified. Yeah. Michael Spinks, an all-time great. And he actually said, I was terrified. And he was dead serious. And it's like, holy shit. I mean, I thought that was amazing and really cool that he had the self-confidence in himself to go ahead and admit that. Which I would imagine he's probably about the only fighter who actually would admit that he was terrified, because Tyson at that time was he was unbeatable at that time. Yeah. And I was like, wow, talk about openness and honesty. That was great.
Well, it's kudos to you guys, and it's kudos to Seat, because it's when you do a good interview, there is a gift to doing an interview to get the subject to kind of forget that they're on radio.
Yeah.
Sometimes that might mean they get so loose they start cursing, which is not great, but it also is kind of good because they're like, oh, I forgot I was on radio. So we had other conversations today with we had Robert Smith on, the great running back from the Vikings in Ohio State, and he was like laughing, he was having a good time. Kadri Ismail was on today, same thing with him. We had Tubby Smith on. He was like, he was having a good time talking about coaches versus cancer. So I don't know how many people listen this week, but Ari did a good job booking up the show. And then sometimes it works out, we hit the right buttons, and the subjects who are on are like, all right, this is kind of cool. I'm enjoying talking to these guys. So I hope it was reflected, in the product, and the listeners enjoyed it. So I thought that was cool. What's up, Nick? Nick says, what's up, fellas?
What's up, Nick?
All right,
Dave. What's Dave? I'm just curious, real quick, if I can. Dave, what's one of the most memorable? What's maybe one of the more memorable boxing press conferences that you've attended?
Any with George Foreman. They were just so much fun. George, I mean, he's impossible not to like. Yeah. Okay, he's just. I mean, I can't speak for what he was like before his transformation. I never met him, but after the transformation, I mean, he was just so cordial and funny. The I remember one. It was at Caesar's Palace, and and it was the usual lunch, and then the press conference, and George is walking around the room before the actual press conference began, and Jack Welch was still alive at that time, and Jack was unique. Let's put it that way. He's a longtime boxing writer, and one of the a real Damon Runyon-esque character. And Jack used to really, he would amass as much food as possible on his plate. And George walks by and he's looking at it and he goes, "I thought I ate a lot." And everyone just cracked up. George was a lot of fun. And I wish he was still more in the public eye outside of doing commercials, because it's just a joy to be around.
Ricky's saying, what's the worst interview? You remember?
That's easy for me.
Yep, I know.
And you know what this is, Steve. Yep. It's that crazy guy from the UFC who's now in prison and apparently will be there for quite some time. War Machine. I forget what his real name is. That guy's crazy. Okay. And he made me extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah. John Copenhaver.
Yeah, that's the guy. He's nuts. Okay.
Yep.
I don't know if I have.
This was obviously before.
Yeah, well,
he did what he did.
Yeah.
But it's like if ever there was a guy who was like, yep, when news of what he did to his girlfriend came out, I was like, that's entirely believable.
Yep. Yeah, he terrorized her and nearly killed another dude, and put her in real jeopardy. And Willie, he came in the studio, and I'm an idiot, man. There's a lot of times I'll press people, not even processing. Like, the person across the way could come over and like literally murder me, and he could, and maybe he would have, but he wasn't at that stage yet. But yeah, Dave got freaked out because Copenhaver's like, he was a freaking manic up and down guy, super depressed at times, and he was like, yeah, if it doesn't work out, I don't have things going for me at like 33, 34 years old, I'm just checking out. I'm going to kill myself.
Yeah, I basically said nothing. Right? I'd say, I'm done. If you want to keep talking to him, fine, but I got nothing more to say here.
Yeah. So, like, in a way, I mean, his brutal honesty was, I guess it was kind of good, but like what came out of it and then what eventually happened, you're like, oh my God, he really did need help. And it's not our responsibility to get him help, but he made it clear and how wacky he was during that interview. So weird one, man. I do want to go back to the fight, the press conference mention, right? For the fight game, or at least I was thinking about press conferences. I will say one of the favorite things that I've covered over the years, and Willie, you've covered a lot of fights, and I know Dave has. There's something that happens after fights, after a shit ton of trash talk, where a lot of times the winner will come in and the loser, if they don't go to the hospital, they come in, and there's a certain amount of respect that you get between the fighters after all the vitriol beforehand. And I was always fascinated, especially guys who win, who talk a lot of trash. And Conor McGregor is one of these guys. After all the disrespect they show before the fight, they come in, and it's like, they kind of let it all out. Like, that was part of the game. I got the job done. I'm feeling the reward. I'm feeling good about myself. And those are often, there's a lot of hooting and hollering during a lot of post-fight press conferences, but the ones that are kind of philosophical, like, man, I just achieved something really cool, and it took everything I had to do it, and this is how I did it. I always find that kind of amazing, that after getting punched in the head a bunch of times and kind of defending your existence, that guys will come in there and they can be eloquent, and you're like, that's why that person's great. That's why that person's a high achiever, because they get immediately what they just did, and they really respect what they just did.
Yeah. I guess press conferences and worst interview, maybe, I don't know, overall worst. I'd have to think. I mean, I've done a lot of interviews. We all the three of us have, so it would be hard to pinpoint. But I can tell you one of the worst moments for me was, and I don't remember if I brought this up on the show, but the very first press conference that Mike Tyson held was out of prison, was at the MGM. It was pre-Peter McNeely, and he had, and it was also somewhat of the announcement that we all knew was Holloway and Horn taking over, managing Tyson, and there were rules that you were not allowed to ask anything outside of boxing to Mike Tyson. And it was in the ballroom at the MGM, and they had mic runners around the ballroom.
Right.
So the guy had just the guy right before me. He grabs the mic and he couldn't speak English that well, and he was trying to basically ask him about his religion, but he couldn't get the sentence out. So he just kept saying your religion in an accent. And Mike Tyson just goes, I'm Muslim. That's it. Next question. Well, my question pre-prepared was, how has your newfound religion helped motivate you mindset-wise to regain the heavyweight crown? Which I'm just combining, but basically asking about boxing. I just wanted to know because he was, very assalamu alaikum. He was very into his newfound religion. He was talking the talk. And he had said that it had helped transform him. So at the press conference, I wanted to know. So coming off of that, I was next in line. So I said, how has your newfound religion helped? And before I could finish, he cut me off. And I'll never forget because it was so poignant and such a big deal. And the internet wasn't a big deal. So it's not like anything went quote unquote viral. But by the time I got back to the Las Vegas Sentinel Voice, the only thing you could do was log on to AOL.com. It was back when you say, you got mail, and you'd hear the dial up and everything. And it was all over AOL. That was the thing that went. Channel 13 led with it. That led with the soundbite. It was Mike Tyson saying, my friend, if you wish for me to stay here, if you wish for me to stay on this dais, you're to only ask me about boxing. And the whole fucking ballroom turned around and looked at me like I did something wrong. And I couldn't even get the question out, but the guy before me sort of ruined it for me. So that combined as far as worst question, because it wasn't my interview, but overall with the press conference and everything, that was just a moment that I'll always go down as, for me, as somewhat of a moment, if you will.
I don't think I ever asked him a question at any of the press conferences. At press conferences, I generally would not ask questions unless I had something really good to ask, and most of the time I just kind of didn't. So my press conference experiences was mostly having more fun than anything else. I'll give you a quick David Tua story. David Tua, former heavyweight, and a really funny guy. Okay, so this was a Texas station, and we had Kevin Aioli and myself decided to play a little prank on the aforementioned Jack Welch. And we got David Tua in on it. Tua had injured his shoulder before the Lennox Lewis fight, and that was accurate. He fought with an injured shoulder. Not that he was going to win the fight anyway, but he did fight with an injured shoulder. So there's a subsequent fight after that, and it's at Texas Station, which, a little bit of a come down from fighting Lennox Lewis, but it is what it is. So we told David, listen, Welsh is probably going to ask you some kind of a question or come up to try and shake your hand, and you want to play along with this. We want you to blame him for the shoulder injury you had against Lewis because he shook your hand too hard prior to that fight. And he says, "Oh yeah, that sounds great." And so he went along with it. Welsh was looking at him like, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it." And then Tua took it one step further. He said, "Well, this is unprepared. This is all on Tua." He says, there is a way we can resolve our differences here. I want you to come to some kind of a ceremony that we have at my home, and we'll drink I can't remember the animal, but he said, we'll drink the blood of whatever animal together, and that will mend all our torn fences. And Jack says, "Oh, I'll have to think about it." It was just great. That's the fun part is when and that's one of the things that boxing offered that maybe the other sports didn't, from my perspective, was getting to know these guys. And a lot of them were really cool guys. We had a lot of fun with them.
No doubt. Ricky has a good question here. This is for everyone. Willie covers a lot of local. So local coaches hard to interview and ask hard questions. What do you think? You got to hold back, or can you ask whatever you want?
Well,
Hey, I guess it depends on looking back is one thing. In the now, we've talked about Marcus Arroyo. I mean, not everyone is comfortable right now with Marcus.
Well, with Marcus, you have limited time, you have limited access, and in reality, I don't even remember if we got follow-up questions on the Zoom. The Zoom is what's making it hard. So you know what? I think there's an addendum, or there's like an asterisk to that question. Local coach is hard to interview and ask hard questions because this year, or since July last year to now, you're on a Zoom. So it's just hard to ask questions, period. And sometimes it's not because of the coaches or the team itself. It's because of the PR people, and they decide when they're going to mute you and if you're going to get a follow-up. So
but you know this, Willie, and this is for Ricky if you want to pull back the curtain a little bit. The more coaches see you around as a regular, the more you're able to ask harder questions. If you're person who comes in and it's slam bam, thank you, ma'am, every 4 months, that's tough. If you're there on a regular basis, they can deal with hard questions. And I will say, you and I have gone back and forth. Not like we're fighting over this, but a lot of people were frustrated with Marcus Arroyo. The spring practice this year, the people who were out there regularly, and I wasn't out as much as I wanted to be, but I was out there maybe 5 times. I know Cassie Soto was there almost every day. Gramala was out there a lot. He was much different face-to-face in that kind of setting. Yes. So I know he's gotten a little bit of a bad rap, but I think in his defense, the Zoom thing, and it's so impersonal. And when you're new to the market, you really don't know the people who are looking at you on the screen. It does make it weird.
Yeah. Zoom's made it hard. And here's the thing. Anytime that I've said anything to you or come on here and said about Arroyo, but I said we've yet to really have a good season overall to judge and assess. All we've had is this condensed season, the Zooms. We really don't have anything to judge it on, so I can't judge him yet. But as far as how he handled certain situations, not making players available, that's still unacceptable to me. But yes, I think that if you're out there all the time, they know that all eyes are on them, and they know who's out there watching them, and they know that those are the people that are going to be reporting on a regular basis. I think when you're jumping into a Zoom randomly, it's for a specific story, it's for a specific topic, it's for a season opener, it's for whatever it may be. I'm probably in 80% of the Vegas Golden Knights Zooms, and I would say half of them that I'm asking questions, I may not even be writing a story. I'm just trying to get a vibe leading up to the game. So I know, sometimes you get something the day before or at the morning skate press conference that all of a sudden that happens that night, and then you can relate to it. You have an anecdote, as we talked about earlier, in engaging interviews, right? So you get some of the players. The Las Vegas Aces are really fun to interview because you can vibe with them and you could talk about their personal life because they're so open on their Instagram stories and they're this and they're that, so they're kind of fun to not poke fun at, but poke fun with. During media day, I sat there for 2 hours on the Aces, and at the end of getting to know some of the new players or whatever, I would joke about Asia Wilson and De'Erica Hamby on their TikTok and their dance moves, and if anybody could dance better than them and stuff like that. So, I mean, there are certain players, certain teams, certain coaches that, yes, they know you a little bit differently, and you can vibe with them. And there are some that's no nonsense, and they don't want to have anything to do with that, and they just want to, get it in and out. Yeah. And to Marcus's defense, we've yet to get to really meet him at this press conference. We've yet to get to know him. We've yet to get to see him do what he can do. So there's a lot of untold there. So, that's just a matter of time. But, let me go back for a minute because you said local coach is hard to interview and ask hard questions. When Pete DeBoer was in San Jose, the media up there called him Prickly Pete. We've yet to see that guy in Las Vegas. Why? Because they're winning. But then the other night, yep. But then the other night, out of nowhere, the very first time, the most important game of the season, and he didn't want to have anything to do with anything that was said negative. And Jesse Granger from The Athletic asked him a question, which wasn't necessarily negative, but he said, if you guys want to talk about the negatives, go ahead, but I'm not going to. And then Blessing followed up with, yes, but it is the little things that da-da-da-da. And he just cut him off and went, next question. And Garrett, who runs the Zoom, said, thanks for your time, Pete, as Pete walked off. So that was the first time since January 2020 that we've got to see any sort of animosity from Peter DeBoer. And it was a frustrating game.
Well, but I watched it, and he was very clear that he thought the team had played really well, especially considering they were down to 15 skaters by the third period. And he was just not going to talk about any negative aspects of the game because he was very proud of the way the team performed, even though they'd lost the game. And it was a crucial loss for the team. So he was kind of clear on that. You got to respect. Sometimes you have to respect when a coach or an interview subject tells you in advance, I'm not going to dwell on whatever.
Right.
I think you got to respect that.
Well, but Dave, there's also a flip side. You do have bosses to answer to. And if bosses find out that you didn't follow up and, hey, you're supposed to be doing your job. It does. But I do need to explain to people who don't understand, what media people are doing. I know Adam Hill was talking about, was there something after the win the other night where, I don't know, people got annoyed that Adam asked a certain question, and Adam said it on the air today. He was like,
I don't know.
He's like, listen, I got to write a feature. This is my one chance to talk to him, and I know it's a little bit off subject, and I know it's not a positive thing after a win. But
the power play.
Yeah, I have a job to do as well. And, people are like, why are you asking that question? Shut up, right? You don't know what we're doing. You don't know why we're doing it.
Yeah.
It's not always a perfect scenario.
Right.
And I get what you're saying, Dave. Like you start.
Well, it was because I'll tell you why. It was
that they're getting annoyed. And at that point, it is a tough decision. Like you keep pressing to get what you want. You may get something great or
but it was the problem I had with it. And look, we none of us are perfect. Okay. It was right after he'd made the comment.
Yeah.
It was immediately after.
It was Brian Blessing followed up Jesse Granger's question.
Yeah.
And it was almost like he said, because Peter DeBoer said, I'm not going to, if you guys want to talk about the negative stuff, go ahead, but I'm not going to. And the way he worded it was the problem. Because he said, yeah, but the little things, when you say, yeah, but, you're kind of fucking going, fuck what you just said. You're going to, I'm going to ask you this anyway. So and that's not Brian Blessing. You guys know Brian. That's not his style. Great. He didn't mean anything by it, but he just said, yeah, but still the little things matter in the games and however he finished it. So it irritated him. And it was right after he had just said, so maybe he could have worded it differently. That's another thing that I'll give you another example. Gerard Gallant. If you guys remember, the night that he stormed out of the press conference, he just hit the table and he walked off after Dave Shane asked a question. And he said, you finally beat a team, with a winning record. Is this a significant, something to the effect of a significant win? And Gallant got mad. I don't remember the circumstances, but he got mad and he walked off. And later on, that was the same day that I want to say there was a college game right afterwards. There was like some college show, like it was a build up so the Golden Knights, I believe they played the Flyers. They won in an after. It was a matinee game and then there was a college game because I was working up, so I went back upstairs to work because of the fact there was a game going on, and Ed Graney and Adam Hill were working in the press room, and Gallant was hanging around because, like I said, there was a college game going on, and he happened to poke his head into the press room. And Ed and Adam start busting balls, they were all laughing. Everybody was like, man, you really just took it to Dave Shane, nicest guy in press row. And Glenn goes, man, you know what? I feel bad because it had nothing to do with him. It had to do with the previous question. It had pissed me off and it just hit me wrong. And it was the way that it was worded. And I owe him an apology. And so there's something right there where it was misplaced anger because of something else. And Dave ticked him off. Go ahead. No, I was just kidding. And then he offered the apology. So
some guys are just boring, and I'll tell you who's maybe the most boring of all, Oscar De La Hoya. Oscar, anything you ask him, he's going to spit out a factory-produced answer.
Monotone too.
And I got to give you a funny story. Because if you catch Oscar off guard, he has no idea what to do. This is prior to the Vargas De La Hoya fight. It's a press conference in L.A. And in fact, Bob Arum flew the Vegas media to L.A. In that little plane they had that later on had a bit of a problem and crashed. Fortunately, nobody got hurt. But this flight was smooth as silk. Beautiful little plane. So anyway, we get to L.A. and we're doing the press conference, and Kevin Iole and myself corner Oscar. And it happened to be right before he was going to tape his appearance on the $64 million, whatever. What was that show? The quiz show?
The Pyramid,
No, it was the $6 million question or whatever it was. I can't remember the name of the show. Anyway, Oscar was going to. It was either that show or Chain Reaction. I can't remember the show, but anyway, Kevin says, "Well, hey, we want to give you a test run for the show," and Oscar's going to look on his face like. So Kevin asks him, "All right, who's buried in Grant's tomb?" He didn't know the answer, okay? And the look on his face was like, because it caught him off guard. And it was, for those who don't know, the old Groucho Marx quiz show from the 50s, when a contestant struck out, the consolation prize was always a question like that. And in fact, it was often that question, who's buried in Grant's tomb? And if they answered Grant, then they got $100 or something like that. So Kevin asked him that question, and Oscar didn't know, and we had to assure him that we would not use that in the interview. We would delete that, because that's when Kevin and myself were doing the boxing show at Lotus, and so he said we won't use that. Don't worry about it, Oscar. But he was Oscar is just, he's a nice enough guy, and when he's not in an interview session, he's actually pretty cool to be around, but. You put the microphone in front of him, and you will get nothing of interest out of Oscar. Nothing. And I don't think that's changed. He's extremely careful of himself. He makes Michael Jordan look like a wide open interview.
Dave, you never had an issue with Sanford and Houck, right?
Bobby, no, not at all. Bobby's a great guy. I still text him every Christmas, and he texts me back. Just a good dude. Sanford was interesting because he was a very likable guy, but he did something that I didn't like, and I had a problem with this. He always blamed something whenever the team lost. He was like the complete opposite of John Robinson. John Robinson, my favorite coached interview of all time is John Robinson. He was predictable. When the team won, it was because the players played great. When the team lost, it was all the coach's fault. Never blamed a player, never, or anything else. And I always admired that about him. Mike was kind of the opposite. It was always, even in his exit from UNLV, he blamed it on the facilities. And, he wasn't wrong, but it was still, I thought, geez, God, kind of just take the high road out. But Mike was big on when the team lost, they failed to execute, blah, 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 blah. And it was never the coach's fault. And kind of was sometimes. It's just not my style. I like coaches who put the blame on themselves and then put the credit on the players. That's the kind of guy. If I were a player, I'd bust through a wall for a guy like that.
Well, I sure hope Sanford's not blaming Faith Lutheran assistant coaches when the Crusaders lose, since that's where he's the head coach now.
And don't get me wrong, I liked Mike a lot.
Right, that was annoying.
Very likable guy. He's just a really good guy. But I hated that tendency. And I wish I'd told him. I should have just said it to him sometimes. It's like, man, take a lesson from J-Rob. Because that's the way to do it. And you want to get players, and I'm telling you, that those are the coaches who really get that extra effort out of their players and maintain really close relationships with their players after they're done playing football. Because John Robinson is still really tight with so many of the guys who played for him at so many of the stops that he had.
Yep.
He's incredibly well respected.
All right, we'll start with Willie. Willie, what'd you think of this week with the Golden Knights? Very interesting week. They couldn't get the job done on Monday, and then, from an integrity standpoint, the NHL down the stretch was a freaking joke. That was ridiculous this week with the Kings and the Sharks.
Yeah, the Jared Bednar said it best. Afterward, they asked him. I was in that press conference. I didn't even go in the Golden Knights press conference. I was in the Avalanche, and he said it best. Somebody asked him the question, and he said, how were you able to pull that out? Golden Knights outplayed you. They had 40 scoring chances compared to your 22. And he said, there's only one answer, and that's Philip Grubauer. Without him, we lose that game. So, in a sense, going back to DeBoer, he was right. The Golden Knights did outplay them, and for the fact that they did it with, a shortened roster and in the notice that they had to do that, it's it was a tough pill to swallow. And then to sit there and watch while they played the same night that the Avalanche played the Kings, and then to sit and watch that final game, I think everybody kind of knew it was going to happen, but to sort of watch a lackluster effort, I actually liked the over in the second Avalanche Kings game, because I thought it would be I thought they'd score more than 6, but it was 5.5. But I did just, they just kind of laid down. I think that a little bit, the only thing that the Sharks were really focused on that night, it seemed like, that was Marleau's Patty Marleau's last game of his career. And I think that was all they were really cared about. I don't think that they even focused. I mean, it certainly didn't look like a Sharks Golden Knights game that we've seen the previous 3 3/4 seasons between that two.
I think that's the coaching too. I'm sorry, I put that on the coach. You gotta try and go out on a real high note. Play hard in your last game, and San Jose did not play hard in that game, especially in your last game at home. That's why I watched the Ottawa Senators the other night against the Maple Leafs, and you'd have thought it was a playoff game. I mean, Ottawa just came out, and they were just they're playing their last game, and they wanted to go out and they wanted to beat Toronto in that last game, and they did. They won the game in overtime. That's what I like to see out of a team. I want to see. I mean, you're a pro, and show some pride. I thought the Sharks showed no pride at all.
No,
in the game against the Golden Knights. And by the way, full credit to the Golden Knights, because that was a tough spot for them. Let's face it. I think they knew going in that we're not going to win this thing now, because Colorado's not losing to LA. I mean, that was the reality of the situation. But you'd have never known it, because the Golden Knights went out and played with fire. And that's a really good sign to me. They didn't lay down at all. You'd have thought maybe they'd have a hangover coming out of the that really tough loss to the Avalanche, and instead they came out blazing. And that was good job by the Knights. Good job by the coaching staff and the players.
And now we're facing the Golden Knights we're facing two interesting West Division matchups.
Oh, we got one right now.
Avalanche with the Blues, and I think that I just don't see the Blues. I mean, as good as Binnington can be, I just don't think that the offense matches up. You're not going to match the speed on all 4 lines, and Colorado's they're just overall too good. And now they don't necessarily need to worry about alternating or resting anybody. I mean, let's put it this way: they knew you can't compare the Kings to the Blues, but they were so confident in that final game that McKinnon is down and because he had just come off an injury, and they sat Grubauer. So I mean, now Grubauer is going to be fresh, and you're running those 4 lines. They're healthy to a degree. They got some players back. McKinnon now they kept saying we'll hope to have him back, but I don't know if that's a smokescreen or not. And the Golden Knights are going to have their hands full. Minnesota was 5-1-2 against them this season. So, there's no really guarantees that the Golden Knights are getting out of that first round.
I don't think that's right. Not 5-1-2. I think Minnesota was 4-3-1, I believe. On the Minnesota side, we were 3-4-0-1.
I thought it was 5-2-1, but I might be
5-2-1 maybe.
Was it?
Yeah, I thought the Wild were 5-2-1.
5-2-1, not 5-1-2.
But I might be wrong on the ties.
No, okay, yeah. The regulation. I'm looking at the What is it? 1, 2, 3.
I think you're right. I think you are right. I think it's 5-1 and 2.
It's 3. Minnesota was 3-1 at home.
Yep.
And here, let's see. Golden Knights had an overtime win, a regulation win, a shootout loss, and a regulation loss. So yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Well, I just didn't add the numbers up.
I can't stand the overtime win and 1 point thing is just weird.
It's confusing. The
scary thing is
the way the Golden Knights are playing right now. If they play at this level, Minnesota's not beating them. They're playing their best hockey of the season right now.
I think they need Pacioretty back for sure, though.
That would help. But I love the way they're playing. I mean, this team's been great down the stretch. I mean, the only game they lost, they outplayed Colorado with 16 skaters, and then they lost one during the game.
Dave, do you have
really good form?
I can look it up too, but do you have? I don't know what you were just looking at, but do you have who was in net against Minnesota each time? Because I wonder what.
No, not in front of me.
So I wonder what Fleury was against. I could look that up because obviously that's going to play a big role too. Fleury is just playing out of his mind right now.
He's just playing at an extraordinarily high level.
The scary thing is that the Golden Knights, there's whatever it is, it's in their head. And DeBoer, I personally, I don't know why you would say this, but it was after a Minnesota game where he specifically said, he answered a question. He said, yes, there are situations where a team can get in your head, and that seems to be the case. And I don't think that you really want to put that out there that you believe in that, whether you don't want to say that publicly, but he did say it. So the fact of the matter is this: if for whatever reason, psychologically, they can't get up in St. Paul and Minnesota steals one here, there's a problem, because that means that now they have to match that and steal one there.
Yeah, they've been a nemesis. Very important for the Knights to win the first game. I mean, you don't want to fall behind this team. But look, it's still that's the weird thing is they match up well with Minnesota. I don't know why Minnesota keeps beating them.
That's the strange thing. That's the strange thing, and that's why it could be that they're in their head. My puppy's jumping all over the place.
The puppy's in your head.
The puppy went to the Perfect Gym today.
Oh, where is the puppy? You had him on.
I had him on my lap, and he woke up and he jumped down. And I'd rather him stay awake and run around for a little bit, because his first night here last night, we got about 4 hours sleep, up a couple of times, and you just pull him from the litter, and he's got all his siblings and the mom, so that was hard on him. But I ran him around today. We went down to our gym. Jordan's up in Reno for a competition with one of his competitors, so I took him down there to check on the gym and get a workout in, and he was running around the gym and sliding all over the slick floors and wore him out, and so hopefully he'll get a good night's rest. He got some cardio in.
Nice.
What's the first toy you bought him?
It's around here somewhere. It's like one of those little fuzzy with the squeakers at both ends, because his mouth isn't big enough. But I also got him the rope tug as well. I got to get him used to doing that. And then the dogs, they make those. Have you seen those? The hard rubber Kongs, the different size Kongs. They're hollow cones, and you put a treat inside of it. But what I'll do is I'll stack it, I'll layer it. I'll put the treat, and then I'll put some sort of wet food or a pate type thing, and then keep layering it, and then freeze it. And then you pull it out if you're going to leave them alone, and it keeps them busy because they're trying to gnaw at that frozen food that's in there.
Good idea. What's his name?
Kahlua.
Well, I hope you and Kahlua have 15 plus years together.
Say hi.
What a cute puppy. Hey, Kahlua. I don't think he knows his name yet.
Nice. Hey, Dave, I got two things to ask of you. Did you retweet the podcast? Do that if you can. I don't know if you did it early. Okay, good.
Yes.
Secondly, did you go out tonight?
Yes.
What's the deal with the new mask mandate? What are you going to do about it? Did you take advantage of it tonight? No mask?
No mask. And now the restaurant I went to, they, I guess, will ask you if you're vaccinated, but then they're not requiring proof or anything like that. So, if you answer no, I suppose they'll tell you, well, you need to put a mask on. And if you answer yes, then that's it. Then you go sit down. The staff is still wearing masks. And I suspect that's what it'll be at most fine dining establishments around town, is that the clientele will not be required to wear masks if they honestly answer. That would be nice as far as the vaccination is concerned, but we know some people won't. However, the staffs are going to remain masked for the time being. I think that makes sense.
Willie, what was it like the other day? Because you went out, you had a big meal for your birthday. By the way, happy birthday. Again, what was it like? What was service like? That was a couple days before or a day and a half before the mask mandate change. So what was it like that day with the servers? They're all wearing masks and.
Well, you know what? As a matter of fact, it was last Friday. I told you guys where I was going to go. I went to lunch at Roma Deli.
By the way, Dave, I'll see if I can find the picture. Actually, pictures. Willie, the spread. My God, unbelievable. The amount of food. Holy Christ.
Yeah, had to. We covered it.
It was so awesome.
I had to get the antipasta platter with the
nice.
the cheese and the roasted peppers and the prosciutto. And then they bring the bread. That's a must. I had what is it? The Michelangelo. It's got the creamy red sauce on the penne. Had some creme brulee. Had some their cheesecake. No, I did the cheese but they make it with the mascarpone. You go there. I gotta go there. So I did. We went there, and then where did I go to dinner? Went to dinner. Oh, we went to Bonefish. My mom and stepdad
Which
and I
one?
went to the one by Fleming's on West Charleston.
That's the good one.
Yeah, went up there. Really good. I got the twin lobtails.
Nice.
And then
hate to give negative reviews, but the Bonefish in West Charleston, terrific. And the one at Town Square, I might want to. It's
why?
It's not very well run.
What's the difference?
Poor management.
Not really.
There it is.
And I almost never give negative reviews, but they have trouble getting orders right.
Oh my God.
And the West, well, they've also got like a different manager every week. Whereas the West Charleston one it's been the same manager there forever, and it's a very well run restaurant, and it's a terrific spot. Love it there. Look at all that.
Yeah,
That's great.
Boy, does that look good?
There you go.
Look at the prosciutto. Oh, that's just outstanding.
Let's get a close up of the prosciutto. Food porn.
Oh,
yeah, Willie got us.
See, now that's perfect. That's perfect prosciutto. That's not the American kind. Let's put it that way, because there's some fat, but it's not overloaded with fat.
right.
Okay, that's the way it's supposed to be.
Just like
Really?
just like we were saying, the provolone there. That's the real provolone, the stinky provolone, not that sliced crap at the Smith's Deli.
The stinky By the way, the Smith's it's bad.
Smith's has, and what's crazy is, here's what's crazy. The Smith's by me has a cheese bar.
Yeah,
and I'm thinking, how do you not have like good provolone? And you got a cheese bar. Makes no sense.
You've got so
Makes
much
no sense.
cheese, and then every time I get provolone there, I'm like, this is not great.
I'll tell you where I went for Mother's Day that I was impressed with. I'd never been there. For as many times as I've been in that plaza, I've been to Marche Baca, but next door I've been to we went to the Americana. You guys been to that place?
I have not been there.
Desert Shores on the lake?
I know where it is. I know where it is. I've never been there.
Yeah. We did Monday Night Football one year at the old place. It was something different than Americana, but yeah.
Great menus.
The Village Pub is right there too, right?
Yeah.
By the way, that Village Pub is, if for people who haven't been to a Vegas gaming bar, that Village Pub is amazing. It's like it's just crazy. Like, it's so quiet and clean and cool, and it's just it's a different kind of bar.
And the original Village Pub is on Sunset Eastern. There's a 7-Eleven on
the
that
original
corner.
was on. I thought it was Tropicana in Eastern.
The Village Pub?
No, well, it was a Village.
Or are you thinking of Anchor Pub?
No, I'm thinking of Village Drugs.
There was a Village. All right, I'm gonna back out. Go ahead.
It wasn't a Village Pub, but it was a Village like drugstore or something like that, and they had slot machines and stuff like that.
Oh, maybe, but no, the Village Pub. It's still there. There's one on Sunset and Eastern. There's one on Sunset and Eastern, the 7-Eleven Plaza. That 7-Eleven and that Village Pub has been there since I used to go to Sunset Park for Pop Warner football practice.
I've been there many times.
The cops go in there for like they'll go in, all hour, or I don't even know if it's over 24 hours now, but they would go in there, the different shifts for meals. That place is still going, but that place
when I was doing the Monday show, from Sunset Station, I had two spots that I would stop, either in the hotel because I like the seafood place there, or Village Pub on the way, and always got a good meal. Nice salads, by the way. And I don't care about the gambling because I'm not a big on that, but I always like the place.
We've got their own beer. The steak specials are awesome there. It's like some of the best steak specials in town. Obviously, Thai to Ellis Island too.
A nice baked chicken too.
There's no dive bar steak. We brought this up before, Dave and I, about a month ago. Or I don't know how long now, but there's no better dive underground bar. Just run down. There'll never be anything like it than the Lift on Valley View.
Oh, the Lift. The best burger.
The KC Steak Special.
The best burger in the city when it was there. Wow. It was huge. It was a half-pound burger, and it was cooked exactly how you wanted it. It wasn't one of these deals where it's going to come out well done whether you like it or not. If you wanted the burger medium rare, you got it medium rare. And, it was a dump. But the food was terrific, and you'd have to go actually up to a little
window
and order your food.
It looked like a cage, like a casino cage. Yeah. That's what it looked like. I was at the opener for the Aviators, and I told I leaned over to Jimmy Gem. I go, wouldn't it be nice? I said, you know where I'd like to go for a burger, but we can't anymore these days. I think it was Jimmy Gem. I said, look, I really wish we could go to the Jolly Trolley and get a burger. Remember the Jolly Trolley? Were you here yet, Dave?
Where was that at?
Jolly Trolley was. It's now called the General Store, but it's in that plaza that's catty corner from the Sahara.
Really?
And that big brown circle that says
there was a great restaurant in there?
The Jolly Trolley was like a casino or something like that.
Oh. Yeah, I remember it had burgers. I was never there.
It had burgers. Yeah. My grandfather used to take me up in there. My grandfather could get away with taking me in places that you weren't allowed to take kids, and I would just go in there and grab it. I wrote this in one of my I wrote it in the month that I did the coping with loss. But one of the best stories, my grandfather and I would go to tennis lessons at the Tropicana, and one day afterwards we go upstairs and it was like a matinee show, and it was Bottoms Up. 78 or 70, whatever the fuck year it was. They changed the year number. Well, he had no clue. He's thinking it's noon. It's a matinee show that they'd be topless. They'd figure, because usually like Splash back then or Jubilee, the early show,
right,
they had tassels on.
Yep.
And then the late show was topless.
Right.
So fucking we go in and they're topless, and my grandfather's embarrassed, whatever. So we go to brunch after. We go to lunch in the coffee shop at the Tropicana, and we were playing Keno, and I would mark the numbers, and he'd turn it in. While I would always pick 15 every single time. And it hit, I don't know how many times in a row, but he fucking won a bunch of money. No. So the following Monday, waiting for him to call me to tell me he's going to pick me up for Monday Night Football. And I get a call. I get home from school the same Monday, same phone call every Monday afternoon. I'm going to pick you up. I get the phone call, and he had a guy call me and scare the shit out of me and say, "This is security from the Tropicana. We understand that you were watching this." I was so scared. I called my mom at the Sahara, scared, crying, She motherfucked my grandfather up and down. He felt so bad. The guy felt so bad. He arranged a free Grand Canyon helicopter tour, right? So they set this whole thing up to make amends for scaring the shit out of me. We get in the helicopter, and payback's a bitch. I got airsick and fucking puked everywhere.
Nice.
That's a story. That is awesome. The Jolly Trolley.
Jolly Trolley.
My spot in that neighborhood was
77 to 81. Where's your spot, Dave?
Tony Roma's, right down the street.
On Sahara.
Oh yeah, that's
Frank Rosenthal's. It
was basically the only rib joint in town at that time.
Yeah.
And that place was always packed. Oh, you it didn't matter who you were going to wait at night 20 minutes, half an hour. I mean, it was jammed every night.
And Marie Callender's was right next door.
Yep.
I have to get a charger. I'll be right back.
Yeah, I was going to say
An LA charger?
Yeah, right. Golden Steer's right up the road.
Yep.
The other way on Sahara. What was like what was the high-end steak place back like early 80s? Was there a place that everyone's like, "Hey, we got to go there"? Was it Circus Circus? What was it?
Circus was really popular. I thought the Golden Steer was the place to take guests when they came into town. Because the food, and I'm sure it still is, the food was tremendous. The biggest baked potatoes I have ever seen in my life. They're like mutations. If they're Idaho potatoes, it was basically the whole state of Idaho on your plate. And I thought, to be honest with you, I thought a lot of the strip hotel restaurants were okay, but I thought Golden Steer was better than any of them. So that was a great spot. And if you wanted to go for a little drive, go out to Bob Taylor's.
Yeah.
Which at the time was in the middle of nowhere.
Of course.
That's changed now, but I mean, you could get lost because there were no street lights out there, and if you didn't know where you were going, and there was no GPS, so if you didn't know where you were going, it's like, look out. And that place used to crack me up because I used to have one of my girlfriends and I used to love to go out there. So we would take a drive out there. We usually get there, late afternoon, and so it was still light out. When we left, it would be dark by that time. And as soon as you walked out in the parking lot at Bob Taylor's, there'd be like a million feral cats that would they were looking for food. And they'd be racing all over the place, meow, and hissing. And it was a crack up. And so we got, we both loved animals. And so we would always make sure we had a little something to give some of the cats. And they would terrorize each other going for the food. It was kind of funny. It's no longer in the middle of nowhere, but Bob Taylor's was a really good spot. Good steaks, great service. It was just a nice, comfortable place.
Does anyone know what it's like now? I've heard some things about that it's not great now, and I've never been there, and I want to go there, but I don't want to be freaking let down and go out there and be like, crap, man.
Do they serve? I don't know any. Do they serve prime steak? Because do they serve in prime beef? Because today, if you're not getting prime beef, you're not getting me.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm going to go out for a meal, I'm not going for select, and I'm not really going for choice. I want prime.
Right.
And these places that serve select, shame on them. I'm not mentioning their names, but you got to be kidding.
Look at Dave. Let's go. Bring it.
I'm not going to mention any names, but ask first.
Yeah.
Because they have to tell you.
I wanted to ask both of you guys, and I'm not sure that. Go ahead, Willie. What do you want to say?
I was just going to say, does the Circus still have its quality steakhouse?
Yes, that's still there.
Yeah.
I haven't been to that restaurant in many years. Because, again, I don't go down to the strip very often, but I'm told it's still outstanding and still has a great following.
I wanted to ask
beautiful room.
I'm not sure Dave's going down there anytime soon, but I wonder what everyone's going to think who's been here for the longest time when they first kind of stand outside the resorts world and then go inside, knowing that the Stardust was there and the Stardust was such a legendary property.
I'm going to be curious. I'm going to have to go in just to see if there's anything left from the old Stardust, because some of the newer hotels have kept a piece of the old place, but I don't know if there's any pieces left from the old Stardust. It's kind of, we've talked about the marina. There's a piece of the marina that's still in the MGM Grand. But I don't know that there was anything left standing at the Stardust.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either, which is kind of too bad. But
Willie, have you been down there?
No.
Because I drive by.
The last time I was down anywhere close to there, I was driving to Piero's.
Yeah, I drive through there every once in a while when I come back from, Silver Sevens or whatever. And I went to Peppermill about a month ago, and just standing at the Peppermill outside in the parking lot, the enormity of Resorts World, and kind of knowing just to the right, the Stardust was there. It's a little bit weird, but that's going to be. I'm excited for it because I think that's a reinvention of the north end of the Strip with the convention center all the way up to the Strip, and hopefully whatever they're going to call the Drew, whoever owns that gets rebuilt, and then I don't know.
I'll tell you what.
What is going to happen to the Wet and Wild site? And how long? Jackie Robinson's had this, whatever he's had, this deal. Like, my God, it's been, that thing has been this massive, awesome lot forever.
No.
And they're still trying to hold on and build another arena in town.
Well, maybe that's where they'll build a basketball arena.
Maybe it's where if we actually get a baseball team and they want to build a baseball stadium, that would be a hell of a location.
Well, we'll see what happens because the Oakland A's have get permission to, if this latest attempt to get a stadium falls through, they're going to move. They're going to go someplace. And Las Vegas has been mentioned as a possible location. And I've heard some people say, oh, it'll never work. Yes, it will. Okay, because this is the spot where everybody will visit and spend the entire series here when their team plays here. I will guarantee you that the Red Sox fans who make their journeys to Tampa, they'll come out here instead if the Red Sox are meeting the Las Vegas A's. Now, I don't know, and Jimmy might know this. I was told, and this is just hearsay from my part. Jimmy would know the answer to this. I was told that the Aviators have a 10-year exclusive.
With the A's?
No, as the only that there can't be a major league franchise that comes in, and it had to do with building the stadium in Summerlin. I don't know the answer to that, but that's what I was told, was that they have a 10-year exclusive on the city.
What do you think, Willie? Major League Baseball work here?
Yes. And here's the thing. I believe that the powers that be, I don't think that they planned it like this, but what I do think is that they happen to go in the right order in bringing the NHL first. And the way that the pieces fell, obviously, with, October 1 and the Golden Knights run, all that. I mean, that didn't hurt. But the fact that it worked in general and you went with that first, I don't know if it would have worked as well in a different order, but the fact that the NHL came first in the desert and was beyond a hit, and now the Raiders are here, and I think if the NBA comes, but baseball's planned, I think that's the coup de grace, and I definitely think that baseball's going to work. They're going to build something with a retractable roof to deal with the heat. That's absolutely the talent, and by the time that happens, and a stadium, it's going to take time to build a stadium, we're going to be near, if not at, 3 million people. And like Dave said, you're going to draw people in, 3-game series, 4-game series, whatever it may be. If, whatever league they happen to be in, people coming in, they're going to want to plan their trips around different things. It's going to work. Let's just face it. Vegas is beyond the Vegas that we know and love from the 70s and 80s, where it was the Strip. It's well beyond that. It's well beyond the UNLV running Rebels. It's well beyond, it's a pro sports town and then some. It's an event city. I mean, yes.
This goes beyond sports. The NFL draft next year is going to blow away every other draft that's taken place in any sport.
Ever.
It's going to be enormous. It's going to be enormous. I can't imagine how many people are going to be here for this. I think you'll get 7 figures here because they're going to come for obviously a lot will come for the draft, but they're going to come here because it's going to be the place to be that week. Football universe is going to be here. And then wait till they get the Super Bowl out here because that's coming too.
And what's funny is people continue to talk about when something sports related happens here, they say, oh, the NBA is holding their league meetings here, right? They're in the summer league. They're holding this. Didn't baseball hold their winter league meetings here one year? I can't remember. Okay.
Yep.
So the fact of the matter is, you know what that is? That's a convention within that organization. This is also a convention fucking capital, if you will. CES is coming back. All those conventions are coming back. So in a sense, when the NBA Summer League comes here and they bring everything else, they're bringing the board of governors, they're bringing in, and Silver's doing the state of the league and all that, and they're having their meetings. That's a convention.
Sure.
That's more than just the NBA coming here to hold some meetings. This is a convention. Like Dave said it best. This is no longer the gambling capital, the entertainment capital. It's an event capital, period.
Right. That's what it is. We happen to have gambling, but everybody else got gambling too.
Yeah.
So they're not coming here to gamble anymore. Okay. That's just a dessert. They're coming here because Las Vegas is, from a logistics standpoint, outside of New York City, or maybe right alongside with New York City, it's the best place to hold an event in the country. And it's more manageable financially than New York City, which is just insane. And I mean, it's perfect. You can't do better. No, there's no city in the world that I believe is better equipped to handle huge crowds than Las Vegas. We are the pros.
I like it. I like the optimism. I like it a lot.
I am so bullish on, and let's look how quickly this city is recovering.
Yep.
From what really was a financial disaster for the state, because we're so reliant on the tourism industry. And we came back. I got to tell you, we came back faster than I thought we were going to.
Dave, how about this? How about the cooperation and collaboration between the casinos and their employees? How about the fact that right now we're going to have 24 places open to 100% on the floor because they had to get past 88% vaccinations. And instead of fucking around like a lot of people around the country and trying to act like tough guys and make some sort of statement, people here are like, let's get back to work.
Yes.
Let's go. We got to make money. Let's get the economy going. To get that many people to go beyond 88% is amazing. Kudos to all the workers. Kudos to the casinos from, whatever they set up. If they set up vaccination centers, they made it easier. This town is bonded together. Let's get this thing cranked up again.
I think the funniest thing and the best indicator of where this city was the ill-fated anti-mask rally. Yep. Oh, the anti-maskers going to be out and they're going to make a statement. They didn't even get 100 people to show up. Not even, and they advertised it all over the place, including some radio personalities who are fairly well known. Come on out and make a statement. Nobody showed up.
Who was that? Was that the jerk off Heidi Harris or Alan Stock, or who was it?
I think Wayne was involved.
Oh, Wayne was?
Yeah. And
I saw Heidi.
It was a joke.
I saw Heidi threatening one of the PR dudes in town, Kip Kelly, about 4 months ago. It's like, shut up. You're stupid bit. We're because around town, all this anti-mask stuff and the vaccine stuff, we're steamrolling you. All right.
Yeah, I mean, there's a minority that is in that camp.
Wants to get back to the. We need to get it cranking down on the strip and get it cranking at the local casinos. Get out of our way.
Exactly. I would say that, and it's probably because of the way the city's configured, but let's just say the anti group doesn't carry much weight here. And I know there's probably some people who are listening to us right now that are in that group, but you're a very insignificant minority. It's an overwhelming percentage in this town because we depend on it.
Yeah,
it is our lifeline in this city. Yep. Is having people here.
I'll be real honest with you. I've never before that freaking Johnson & Johnson been vaccinated. And I don't know where I'll be next year mentally after what I had to go through. But when you look at what's on the plate and you look at what you're facing from a professional standpoint, from, like you said, from a local standpoint on the whole, with as far as the town is concerned, when I talk to people, the couple of times in a row when I was on with you guys, and you're like, you had already gotten it, Steve, Dave, you had to cancel or delay because of your cat.
The cat, yeah.
Yeah. So, but in general, I was on the fence about it. But from a professional standpoint, in hearing some of the things, whether I don't look at it like they're forcing you into doing it. They're putting you in a position where and making it a political statement. No, that's just the way of that's just the way it goes. And if from a media standpoint, if next year's protocol for the media and they keep you in tier 1, 2, 3 for whatever it is, and I'd be left in the press box on a Zoom as opposed to being able to get a one-on-one, or during the week being able to go in like it used to be and getting the one-on-one and building the rapport with those players, if that's what it takes from a professional standpoint, then sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And these people that are saying the long-term effects. The bottom line is my doctor.
I don't know about any long-term effects.
My doctor said, Willie, you've had lung issues. You got this thing where you're this recurring cough every spring because of whatever allergies and this and that. And said it's affecting your lungs. You need to get vaccinated. I went in to see her the other day for my quarterly checkup, and she walked in. It was funny. She goes, "What's going on?" I go, "Nothing." She knew. She goes, "What's wrong?" I was messing with her. I go, "I'm pissed off at you." She said, "Why?" I said, "Because you made me go get that fucking Johnson & Johnson, and I had COVID for 25 hours all over again, and it was the worst feeling I had since last March when I had it." And she started laughing, and we laughed, and then that was it. But the bottom line is, I mean, fuck, I didn't want to wear a mask. I didn't want to wear the mask in the gym when they said that, and they said if you have an existing medical condition, and coincidentally in June last year I did with this, I had been seeing the pulmonologist, and I was legitimately worried that by going in and working out, it was going to affect my breathing. But I got to figure out how to do it, got through it. And now, it feels weird. It's weird. This past week, I don't know if it's psychological or what, but I've gotten out of my car 3 different times at 3 different places, forgot to put the mask on, had to walk back to my car and get it. And I don't know what it is, but it feels weird not to have it on.
That doesn't feel weird to me. It feels good.
It just it feels so normal to have it on all the time. So it's like,
Yeah, I mean, I got used to it. I never liked it. I just did it because it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
It was the right thing to do. Okay.
You know what, Dave? You know what? You're not a pussy. So,
right.
And
I'm not.
Because you do what you have to do. And listen, we've been doing this for over a year now, and or whatever, close to a year. And Dave shut it down. Dave's been at home most of the time, but Dave's had a great year. You stayed disciplined. You did what you needed to do. I'm sure that it actually probably helped your handicapping. You freaking branched out. You're doing Korean baseball. You're now as good as you've ever been because you stayed disciplined. You didn't freaking whine about some stupid mask or any other restrictions.
No, one thing I've never been is a whiner. I mean, you got to roll with the punches and just move on. And I guess that comes from doing what I do for a living, because you're going to have bad periods. I mean, the graph looks like this, it goes up and down. It's not a straight line, and it doesn't just consistently go up. And if you can't deal with it, you better find another line of work. So that translates into my everyday life. And there's certain things where I am a truly selfish bastard, and one of them is food. Okay, I'm a snob when it comes to food, and it's like
I want my prime.
If you're grilling and you invite me, you better not be hot dogs, because I'm not eating that shit. I want something good. Okay, or I won't go. I'll make an excuse and not show up.
I hear that.
But for the important stuff, I don't know why anybody would be selfish, because all you end up doing is being considered an asshole by a lot of people, and nobody wants to be thought of as an asshole, do they? Well, I guess there's some people who do.
I think there's some people who don't care. That's why they're assholes.
Steve, I think it's safe to say that Dave is could put, if he wanted to, he could make business cards that says professional restaurant connoisseur. Why don't you throw tonight's dinner up that I cooked in my kitchen and put a price tag on? Because I said, I wonder what this would cost or I said, I don't know what this would cost in a restaurant, but
I'll tell you who's better than I am, though. Marco D'Angelo. Marco is, because he scopes out places that people don't know about, and he has found some real gems. So, and he'll write them up. And Marco's got a lot of people who wait for his recommendations, and they are
restaurant review.
I got to tell you, I've tried a lot of his recommendations, and he nails it every time. I mean, he's really good.
What name it? Give me a place that he found that you were like, holy shit, this is good.
Oh shit. I forget. I'm so bad with names sometimes. This one, I think it's Billy Bob's Texas Barbecue or something like that. I can't.
Yeah, that's out on St. Rose Parkway, isn't it? Is that the one?
No, I think this place is on Fort Apache. I'm not sure. I got it delivered.
Or maybe I'm thinking of
But
Texas.
it was
Texas.
really good. Another place, is Italian place, way out of town. It's something Mama's Room in the name. I can't think of the name, but the meatballs were terrific. Good, really good food.
You're talking the barbecue place. You're talking about Big B's Barbecue.
That's it.
Yep.
Yeah. He told me about that. It's like, okay, I'll try it. And it was like,
is the one with Mama's by Desert Breeze Park off like Buffalo?
I think it might be. And the guy, the owner, used to be a chef for Frank Sinatra.
Oh.
So he's pretty good.
Yeah.
But no, he's Marco finds places that I could never find. So he's really good at finding gems around town.
There was a place, I don't know if you ever went there, Dave, but it was somewhat back then, might have been on your side of town, maybe near your offices, but East Trop and Eastern in the Albertsons Plaza, and it was called the Pasta Shop Ristorante. And it was a storefront in the plaza, but it was a typical like the red and white tartan tablecloth type of place. And the guy
heard of it, was never there.
I happened to go in there with Saraceno and Wally Matthews one night. They knew about it from coming in for boxing matches. And then as it turned out, at the time, I had just met and was dating Jordan's mother. And it turned out that those guys, the owners, were brothers from Binghamton, New York, where Kristen was from. And there are two places up in Binghamton that if you go to Binghamton, you got to go to the two. It's Cortese or Little Venice. And it reminded me of that place, the pasta shop.
Somebody wants to know, Connor Mack, prime rib. Well, Laurie's is the best, okay? But if you're not looking to spend as much, and when Steve comes back, I don't know what happened to him. When Steve comes back, a place he told me about, they used to advertise, I don't know if they still advertise or not, on the show, was Jackson's Bar and Grill at the corner of Jones and Flamingo.
Yeah.
And it's only on Mondays. I don't know if they're still doing it, but they had a Monday prime rib special. You could get a large cut or a small cut, and for the price, I mean, dollar for dollar, fantastic. Do they still have that special at Jackson, Steve? The prime rib special?
Yeah, they do. Yep, prime rib and the ribeye. Yep.
I gotta get back over there because they're nice people. It's a nice bar. They have a separate restaurant area, and I mean, dollar for dollar, you're getting out of there for like with a nice tip. It's like $25 for a big hunk of prime rib with a potato and a salad. Good job, really good job at Jackson's.
There was a bartender there that I went to elementary school with, Billy Clayton, and he used to post it on Facebook.
Yeah, Billy was there for a while. I don't know if he's still there though. He should be, but who knows? Who knows? There's
all right. So here we go.
Glad I brought that up because I'm going to go there Monday, I think.
Yeah.
All right, Dave, give me a price tag on this in a restaurant. So we have sautéed peppers and onions as a bed for a seared ahi tuna steak, garlic mashed potatoes with a little bit of sour cream and butter mixed in. I've got the up there next to the mashed potatoes, those are hand-cut white onions breaded with panko breadcrumbs and air-fried with a homemade sweet and sour sauce to dip it in. And the salad is a mix of romaine, spinach, tomato, cucumber, hearts of palm, beets, radishes with a homemade balsamic vinaigrette.
Okay.
What's that costing in a restaurant?
Well, I mean, the seared ahi tuna is going to be the most expensive item. And a good helping of seared ahi tuna, probably between 25 and 30, I would say. More if you are looking for spectacular ambience, but I think it's probably in that range. And then you have to just add in the other stuff. So I don't know, probably probably a good $40 plate before.
And I had a
before
nice
everything
glass
else.
of Pinot Grigio, and the
Well,
ambiance.
I mean, now you're adding on, but I'm talking about just the food.
Oh,
Because
no,
the
I'm just
Pinot
saying.
Grigio, I mean, it depends what you want to do. Are you going to get a bottle, or are you going someplace where it's by the glass?
Oh no, I just had a glass because I knew I had this live stream to do.
Oh, okay.
And then the ambiance and atmosphere was my puppy. That's about it.
Well, that's good. That's great ambiance. I think that's worth an extra $1.
So there you go.
I'd say in that range.
There it is. That's a fat pack conversation.
My meal tonight was
Fat pack.
I had a phenomenal meal tonight. Absolutely great. Had grilled Norwegian salmon, which
Nice.
I absolutely love salmon.
Yeah.
Beef carpaccio to get things started, and baked potato, and I took a piece of key lime pie home for dessert, which is in the refrigerator right now, and I will be eating that after this show is over. So phenomenal meal.
Are you a steak tartare guy?
No,
Me neither.
No.
I'm not.
Did you ever
like
go
beef
to-
I like carpaccio, but I'm not. But I'm not a big tartare. I just no. I've never been a big fan of that mix.
Did you ever go to the old Tropicana? The Sunday, was it the champagne buffet at the Tropicana, where you'd walk in?
I will make a confession to you. I have never been to a Sunday buffet in Las Vegas.
Really?
This place.
Never did a brunch.
No, I'm not a brunch guy. I get up. I'm up too early for brunch, and I'm just boring when it comes. I'm adventurous when it comes to dinners, but breakfast I want my bacon and scrambled eggs, or sausage and scrambled eggs, and my coffee or hot tea, and that's what I want. So I'm useless at a buffet because I'm only going to go for two things. So why bother? So as good as some, and I know I've been told, oh, you get the brunch buffet at the Bellagio, unbelievable, and some other places, but it's like, and besides which, on Sundays, I'm usually getting up to watch football games.
Yeah.
So
This was way back in the day too. Before, I don't even remember if the Bellagio was open when I went there. But I just remember you walked in, and for your typical regular old Vegas buffet, it was on the far left wall. Everything else was the eccentric shit. This was before stations created their feast. So this was but it was all eccentric. Down the center was sushi or quail eggs and different things like that. They had an omelet station. They had, it was very elaborate. And at the time, $25 or whatever it was, $30 for a buffet, that was like a big ticket. Now that's nothing compared to going to, to whatever. I would imagine other ones are more expensive. Then, I live by Aliante. I've been to the Aliante one maybe on Easter or Mother's Day a long time when we first moved out to this side of town. But I'm not, again, I'm like you, I'm not a major buffet guy, but I've been to my share of buffets in this town.
most expensive meal I've ever had. That's an easy one. The Jim Feist crew years and years ago had an annual event called the Horse's Ass. And we would pick one weekend out of the year. And the contest was 5 college games. You could pick any 5 college games against the spread and any 5 NFL games against the spread. And the winner, best record, chose the restaurant. Worst record picked up the tab. This got to be very expensive over the years. Fortunately, the year I lost, I had one year where I lost, and that was early on, so there were only like about 10 people. And the Tillerman was the choice by whoever won that year, which was at that time, the Tillerman was one of the best restaurants in town. And that was pretty expensive. Was it worth it? Yeah, because I got, it was the only year I lost. I won a couple of times and never finished last again. So it was generally really good eats, and I was eating for free. And we picked expensive restaurants. Believe me, this was not. We weren't going to McDonald's. Okay.
You paid the price if you lost.
And what made it worse was if you lost, not only did you have to pick up the tab for everybody, you got awarded a trophy of a horse's ass, and you had to wear a feed bag during the meal. So we're in these really nice restaurants. You know, we're at the French restaurant in Paris, and I forget who. Well, I do remember who it was. I'm not going to mention it, but he's sitting there. I mean, it's a beautiful restaurant, very elegant, and one of us is sitting there with a feed bag over his head.
That's awesome.
That was a great contest.
That's awesome.
That was definitely the most expensive. My most expensive, in terms of a regular basis, was the original Andres downtown.
Oh yeah.
Debbie and myself used to go there. That was our favorite place by a lot, by the way. It is my favorite restaurant of all time. And I didn't care what it cost. We used to get a very good bottle of wine. Claudio Vajani, who still remains a friend, was the sommelier, and he would recommend something not cheap. It was usually in the $200 to $300 range. And the meals were really good. But I'll tell you what, was it worth it? Oh, boy, was it ever. Their food's the best I've ever had. The best I've ever had. And I understand that George is now the chef at the country club at Spanish Trail. Well, I'm not a member, so I can't go. But the Andres around town are not around. They're not around anymore. Andres downtown is closed up. Yes, Razorback scoop. You bet. The Dover sole at Andres is as good a meal as I've ever had, and it was just as good. It was just as good at Alizé, which was another one of his restaurants. I never got to the one at the Monte Carlo. Was supposed to go there one night. Unfortunately, it was right after the arena had opened, and it was the same night as a Barbra Streisand contest. And I said, "There's just no way I'm going. I'll never be able to get out of there." And I passed on going to the Andres at Monte Carlo with a bunch of people, just because it's like, I'm not fighting that traffic. No chance. And that turned out to be a wise move. Yes, the Andres are all closed. Great loss. Andres at one time was rated by Playboy magazine as one of the 50 best restaurants in the entire United States. That's how I heard about it. When I moved out here, it's like, I remember reading this in Playboy, and I want to go to this place. Yeah. And we became regulars there. We were there at least once a month, participated in all their charity auctions and stuff like that. That's where I won the show tickets to Danny Gans. I bid on a Danny Gans ticket package and went to see him. We went to see him. And then later on, Danny came on the radio show and did an impression of me.
That's
Remember
awesome.
that?
What a compliment. That is so awesome.
That was great. That was a highlight. Danny Gans, the late Danny Gans, was a phenomenal entertainer. Just incredible entertainer. What a great show he put on.
Now, let me ask you this, Dave. You know history in this town. He wasn't his only mentor, because there were a lot to choose from. But when it came to singing impressionists, who did Danny Gans look at to succeed in terms of who did he?
This, and I can't.
I know you know who it is. When I say it, you're going to go.
Think of it. I can't think of it.
Bob Anderson. Is that who you're thinking of?
Okay, then I didn't know that.
Okay, Bob Anderson. Bobby Anderson was the original. I mean, he would do the Top of the Dunes, and Sinatra and Sam. They would come and watch him watch him do them, and come on stage and sing with him while he was doing them. That's how far back Bobby goes. But Danny Gans would go to his show, and then, the torch was passed, and then obviously the transition of, when he was the resident at the Mirage, and that was the first resort, and it just went from there. But yeah, Bobby was there you go. Bobby was original. I mean, you had Rich Little, and he kind of was more stand up, just did voices. Yeah, the singing impressionist. Bobby Anderson was the original.
Danny was a really good baseball player.
Yeah,
and
he was in
and he was huge.
He was in?
Huge sports.
Bull Durham. He was in Bull Durham.
Danny played pro ball.
Yeah.
Until he got hurt, and that was the end of that. And then he went into show business, which turned out to be a pretty smart move, but a really nice guy. And he was
in Bull Durham with Kevin Costner.
Yeah, I think he just had a small role in that, though.
Well, he was one of the players. He was a recurring face always in all the scenes.
He did mention most of his stuff got cut out.
Did he?
Yeah,
Because
I remember him talking about it.
when they had team shots, he was in a lot of them. But yeah, he was a great guy. And then and Gordy Brown's good. Gordy Brown's a good guy.
No, it's a shame that Danny died young, and that's a shame because he'd still be
there. It is.
He'd still be packing them in.
Look at Steve on the detective work.
Let's see if it'll load up. Now it's all locked up. I had it. He was just doing Sinatra. It was good. God damn it! Now it's not going to work.
There's been a lot of really. They're not around anymore. But there's been a lot of really good Sinatra impressionists.
Where's Jimmy Gemma? Jimmy, you remember Bob?
I think Jim fell asleep.
We had somebody on the show. I can't remember who it was. I'm blanking on the name, but he was really good. He was around. I can't. You'd have to look up Sinatra impressionists. He was an Italian guy, young guy. And it sounded exactly like him.
Yep.
I can't remember his
really
name.
Good too. Yep.
I can't remember his name.
And you know what?
I want to go see Gordy Brown. Yeah, go ahead.
Gordy Brown's really good. Gordy Brown's really good. Joe Shinta's daughter, Lisa, was on The Voice. Is that a show? That's the show, right? The Voice. Where they're in the chair and they turn around and they pick you. She made it pretty far on that, and I think she's doing some songwriting for some people. But yeah, Frankie and Joe were good.
You're not kidding.
There you go. There's Jimmy Jim checking in.
I never saw Bob Anderson. I guess I missed him.
Growing up, I don't know. Because phone numbers were just everyone was a house phone, or do you mean once cell phones became? I don't know. I didn't know anybody famous growing up. You just kind of, I don't know. Gianni Russo maybe when I was a kid. We talked about that a few weeks ago.
Yep,
that's so funny. I was telling my girlfriend about that, and she was like, "What? Dionne Warwick and a guy in The Godfather?" I'm like, "Yep." They were going crazy about about their bar and them fighting at the bar. I'm like, "That's great stuff."
Wow! Hey, Pasta Shop is now in Henderson on Hawaii. Is it the same brothers? The same two brothers? That's a great spot. If it's the same two brothers, I would drive out there just to go eat their food because they cook some. And the cool thing was they just had one rectangular menu. That was it. It was the same thing, and they specialized. It was really good, authentic stuff.
All right, guys,
there's a lot of good Italian food around this town. There really is.
Well, we'll talk about it next week. We're up against it. Appreciate it. Thanks to the audience for sticking with us. Willie, Dave, thank you. Willie, happy birthday again.
Kahlua.